Hi, everybody. How's it going today? I'm Michael Scott with Cannapreneur Partners. I'm a founder of a cannabis holding company that focuses on bringing strategy and capital to early stage businesses. And I've got some amazing guests from the industry with us today. Amazing businesses with a lot of powerful insight. We're going to be talking about COVID, the impacts of COVID and technology. Why don't we start off by everybody introducing themselves? And Tara, why don't we start with yourself? If you could tell me a little bit about yourself and your company.
Yeah. Well, I'm Tara Wells, and I am one of the founders of Ganja Goddess. We're a lifestyle retail cannabis delivery company in the state of California. We deliver to customers all over the state, and we have several warehouses and offices all over the state of California. We've been in business since 2011, and so we have a really good relationship with a lot of customers. And my background is really in TV production and writing. I was a TV producer for a long time and did a lot of content for different networks and won an Emmy. And I got really tired of working so hard. And then I discovered cannabis at one point and, just segued into that in the 2010, 2011.
Wow, Emmy and a cannabis serial entrepreneur. Very, very impressive.
Amazing.
I have to ask this real quick question because I also come from other industries, predominantly financial services, wealth management, and then the fitness industry. And so this is really my third industry working in, and I really just fell in love with it. I'm really curious your experience of this industry versus some of the other ones.
Well, certainly my background in television helped with marketing and publicity because, I was very familiar with that for all the shows that I did. But I've loved it. I'm a real advocate of cannabis. I came into cannabis personally later in my life. I didn't even try cannabis until I was 35. So, but I'm an avid gardener, and I decided one day to throw some cannabis seeds in a pot and grew it. And I thought, this is an amazing herb. And so, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. I found the transition great. We're a very young industry. And so for me, I've been able to grow organically, and my company has grown organically with the industry growing. And I still feel like we are in the cannabis infancy stage as far as an industry is concerned. But I love it. I mean, it's definitely fun and always interesting. And, I love my customers are really terrific people. They come from all walks of life. I feel like I've been really a part of normalizing cannabis for women and for people that are very mainstream. So that's kind of been a cool process.
Well, thanks for sharing, Tara. We're really glad to have you on. Dre, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, Jushi.
Of course. So Dre, or like Andreas Neumann, my name. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Jushi. We're a multi-state operator. We have lots of retail operations in multiple states. Our main state is Pennsylvania. We just opened in Virginia, which is a very interesting market. Illinois as well for us. We have 4 stores there and very interesting spots straight on the border on the border of Massachusetts and St. Louis, Missouri, and as well California. We're just getting started. We have 1 dispensary here, and we're expanding, and we have as well. We vertically integrated in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and as well Nevada. So my background is really traditional advertising. I started my first companies in Germany, there was production companies, TV production companies for commercials. Directed commercials, then moved on. Was very lucky. Could sell my agency, my production company, to a big American advertising agency called Grey. Moved on, stayed with them for a while, and then I moved to London to escape the boring Germany, and lived 10 years in London. And was always I'm a serial entrepreneur. I was starting always companies between branding and entertainment. Got very involved into the music industry as well. did a lot of films as a director, music videos, went into photography, and ended up with one of my startups in Saatchi & Saatchi in London, which was kind of the first initiative for branded content. This is like in the early 2000s, so it was already I think Tamara will know a lot about it. This was then starting out when digital came in, and it was all like the whole advertising model didn't work anymore, the traditional one. So we had this branded entertainment company within Saatchi & Saatchi, obviously big agency, big worldwide agency, and then when this internet explosion came with MySpace and Facebook, I left Saatchi, moved to Silicon Valley, and then since then I'm in the US. So I had a startup there in Silicon Valley called talenthouse.com, which was kind of a LinkedIn for creative people. I sold that, moved to Los Angeles, and invested in various startups. Always entertainment meets monetization of fame very early on already, like with Instagram and all that. Before in Instagram, we had models of monetizing celebrity online. And so became as well, like in the US, in Hollywood here, where I live, very active in like more photography, more films. I did a kind of as well a rock and roll, known as a rock and roll photographer. Did the last Foo Fighter album, or Queens of the Stone Age, with a rock band I'm working a lot with. So, and that, sorry to make that so long, but that takes me to cannabis, because I originally wanted to start a brand with the Queens of the Stone Age, which is they're known as the inventors of stoner rock. And so I was on the quest on finding a partner, and I, through some friends and through some, this is early 2019, I got introduced to Eric Mauff, our president of Jushi, and we were talking, and he was interested, and we met, and then I just exited this time from, and this was my last company before Jushi, and user experience agency, UX and CX, which I think as well, like we can talk about it later, is a big part of branding and advertising these days. So the experience, how frictionless applications are designed, and how people are using it, is very important. This is what my agency ID did, which we then sold as well. And then I was propelled with my best guys into Jushi. We did the first project together, a research project on Californian retail. And from then on, February, my team became 100% Jushi. And so we're running basically all the online, all the communication, and we have all the brands under us. So I'm very much involved in kind of all angles of the company. I just come from a grow here in California. We looked at, so we have to be vertically integrated to make this really interesting. So this is the background. This is how I landed in Jushi, and that's it.
Well, Dre, impressive background. Another fellow serial entrepreneur. This industry tends to attract them.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us today, for you and Tara. And now we've got Cy Scott with Headset. Cy, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Great to be here. Unfortunately, I don't have as hip of a background as photographing rock stars and television. It's a bit geekier on my side.
Well, we're a big fan of you. We're a big fan of you.
You founded a pretty powerful brand, Cy, so I get some cool points from that for sure.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, so I'm the CEO and co-founder of Headset. We're a data and analytics firm focused on the cannabis industry. And our job is really to help cannabis operators, or those looking at the cannabis space, really better understand the competitive landscape, really find opportunity in the space, and if they're operating with a brand, really measure brand performance overall. Our mission is really to enable everyone in cannabis to have the data they need to drive informed decisions and ultimately be more successful, and really make this industry more successful, and an industry that will be around for many years to come. I've been in this space for a while. I've been in the cannabis orbit for about 10 years. Before Headset, I started another company called Leafly, which was a bit more consumer focused. really set out to demystify cannabis for a mainstream audience. The world was very different 10 years ago. It was strictly medical at the time, and to go into a dispensary, you needed a doctor's recommendation. There was no adult use cannabis that you could just kind of wander into. So we really helped people understand, what cannabis was all about, the different strains, varieties, and gave people a platform to kind of share that information. Very passionate about the category, and I think that data is necessary and can be very helpful, especially in this fast-moving, fast-growing, always changing space. We were just talking before we kicked off the panel that by the time South by Southwest starts in March, the world may look very different in cannabis. It seems like every week it changes, every month it changes, and we hope to help people better understand that by getting the data into the hands of those that need it. So looking forward to the discussion.
Sai, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining, and so true, your point. Having now experienced other industries, this industry moves at a blistering pace compared to the other industries. It is a blistering pace. And I just gotta add a quick comment in there. I'm sure lots of listeners that are tuning in, as well as us talking, have experienced your app, Leafly, and found that to be an amazing tool to find the almighty cannabis in whatever state we happen to be in. So hats off to you, my friend. I think that's a pretty important thing. So
thank you.
Very cool. Well, let's jump into some of the questions. So COVID has been like a giant curveball to the world, right? And it certainly adversely impacted a lot of industries. We're going to be talking about how COVID has impacted the cannabis industry. And I think there's been some good and some negative associated with that. But in particular, we want to hone in on how cannabis has also impacted the digital user experience. So let's jump into some of those questions. And this first one is probably a good one for you, Sai. With your background and with what your company does with Headset, you guys are all about the analytics, which is so important in this industry. If you're in a fast-changing industry like this and you want to know where the puck is headed, you've got to do that based on data, right? So, what big changes, Sai, have you seen in consumer behavior on really a macro level, as a boots on the ground, person, and some of you as boots on the ground operators? If you could tell us kind of the experience COVID has had an impacting the consumer experience and your business, and how has your business had to kind of evolve on this? So let's start with that first question of how has COVID impacted things on a macro level, Sai?
Sure. Yeah, happy to talk to some macro trends around that. So I guess some background on Headset and really, analytics and the type of analytics we provide. So we source our data from retailers and dispensary cooperators. We're in over 1,500 different locations across the US and in Canada. So we've got a pretty good lens into what's going on. Now, I will say every market is different. There's a very fragmented landscape, and California is very different than British Columbia, is different than Michigan, and so on. So kind of talking in aggregate, and I'll call out, some specific kind of unique market trends we see, but it can be kind of tough sometimes to just kind of bucket every market in the same way. But at a high level, when we think about COVID, and it's hard to believe that it was almost a year ago when this all happened, the time of the toilet paper stockpiling for everyone that remembers those days. So at the start of the pandemic, really what we saw, as you can imagine, a large sales spike. And that was driven by those same stockpiling behaviors. With cannabis, it wasn't unknown in the early days. Would cannabis be considered an essential service? Were retailers going to be staying open? When you had restaurants closing, gyms closing, the big question on people's minds was, will I be able to access cannabis? And so there was a lot of stockpiling behavior that happened early on, and then a bit of a drop shortly after that. And that's kind of common, in any sort of type of situation where you have people purchasing a lot, like, in the cannabis industry, April 20th or 420 is a big sales day. So you notice a lot of sales going up at April 20th and then kind of falling off April 21st after the kind of specials are over, and they've have enough supply, so to speak. So we saw some of that same behavior, but longer term, sales are up. I mean, the good news is sales are up market to market. Every market that we track, we're in 30 different regions. With our footprint, we see growth. And to give you a kind of sense of the size of growth, in newer markets like Michigan, newer adult use markets, I should clarify, you saw massive growth. And this is just a common story for any new market. And a lot of it has to do with access, with stores opening, more consumers coming into the space. But in a market like Michigan, we saw growth, January 2021 versus a year ago, January 2020, of 3x. Sales went from 35 million in January 2020 to 104 million in 2021. Now, Michigan is a special case, and there's other markets like Michigan in the US that, are newer and growing quickly. But even in more mature markets like Colorado and Washington, or even California with the sizable market, we see growth of 40 to 50% versus a year ago on a monthly sales basis. So another example, California, in January 2020, was close to about $300 million in sales, and it was over $400 million in sales in January 2021. So you're seeing good growth, even for markets like California, where there's been a legal framework for some time. Some markets like Nevada, growth's been a little slower. We see about 20% growth. That's tourism related, right? As people aren't traveling as much, not visiting areas like Las Vegas as much. Sales are down a bit compared to other markets, but still 20% growth for any consumer category is massive when you really think about it, especially with the volume of sales that we see in Canada, multi-billion dollars worth of sales. So that's some good news. I mean, it's all pretty much good news. When you think about, where is the sales growth coming from? It's obviously from, new consumers always coming into the segment. 10% of sales right now is going to Generation Z, which if you think about it, are really only 3 years of age in the legal markets, 21, 22, and 23-year-olds. And they're aging in every day. So every day, people are turning 21, new consumers are able to go into those markets. That's obviously, a big driver, but just when we look at like store sales, a lot of it's being driven by additional items getting added to baskets. So when people are shopping, they're purchasing more products. Another way that sales goes up is, products are more expensive, but the price has been relatively flat, which is good. Inventory is available. Maybe in the early days, there's a bit of scarcity after kind of that initial rush, but now supply, and this is kind of the new normal, as they say, for the time being. So things have stabilized, but people are purchasing more when they go into a store. Average baskets, average transactions are up about 30%. Which is good. About $65 when we look across all markets. $65 is average basket pre-tax, and that's up from about $50, and it's holding relatively steady at that new level.
30%.
A couple more, and a couple more points, and I'll pass it over to the operators. Is they've got certainly a lens on the day to day. But some other trends that we're seeing in this post-pandemic world, I would say time of day has shifted a little bit. With this work from home kind of world that we're in for a lot of people, the hours of purchasing cannabis is sold not a little earlier in the day. I would say it's not like sales are going to early in the day, but more people are shopping earlier in the day than they were before. So historically, more sales would be happening later in the evenings, on the drive home after work, clocking out, heading home, swing by the cannabis store on the way out. Now people are more flexible. So you're seeing sales kind of happening throughout the day and not as concentrated towards the tail end of the day. Weekend sales, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, still driving, roughly 40% of a retailer's sales in general. But as far as time of day, we're seeing a bit of that shift. And then finally, category sales. When we think about cannabis, comes in a variety of categories, from flowers to edibles to vapor pens and so on. One interesting kind of trend is that flower category, while always the predominant category, flower as percentage of market share actually grew. It was dwindling, and it was getting taken over by vapor pen and edibles and these other categories that are commanding more attention in the category, in the cannabis category. But flower sales is coming back, and I think that can be driven by price sensitivity and price pressure. I mean, flower is the most cost-effective cannabis category. You can get, THC, in the flower format at a lower price than you might be able to with a vapor pen or with an edible. So we think people are just being a little more cost sensitive, which makes sense. In this time of pandemic, some people, many people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are wondering what the future holds. And so, being sensitive to pricing matters, and flower seems to have gained market share. Now, I will say in markets like Canada, those trends do not hold. So for any Canadian audience, in Canada is a little different, and there's a reason for that. So in Canada, while adult use sales has been legal for some time, just in 2020, they finally introduced what they call 2.0 products, 2.0 for Canada. They've been 1.0 in the US for a long time, but beverages, edibles, vapor pens were not sold previously. So that is kind of a different world in the sense of those are new products in the market in 2020. So you do see some different dynamics. Flower is still the largest category in Canada, but it isn't gaining market share like it is in the US. So every market's different. For any operators that are in the cannabis space, definitely look to the trends in your market, because they may vary slightly depending on legislation. But those are kind of some of the aggregate trends that we're seeing here at Headset.
Sai, I can tell you are a true data guy. I am impressed. The depth of the data is impressive. And I just have to highlight one thing. I think it's really cool for any potential investors that are on the call to hear what Sai said. COVID actually spiked sales. It spiked, on a per transaction level, 30%. And I got to tell you, here's why that's really key for investors to think about is as you place investments in what could be a powerful market, you want to be in something that is not going to be exposed to all these ups and downs. And so to see, COVID really prove that when the world needs to cut their spending in a lot of categories, they don't do it in cannabis. That's one that stays. And that's not dissimilar to alcohol or utilities, right? So those of us with the investment backgrounds, we certainly see that. So it's very, very cool to see those data points, to be highlighted by you like that.
It's interesting because we have found in our company, which is completely online, we're similar to Amazon, Cannabis and Amazon, and all of our sales are online and done, paid for before they're delivered. Our sales went up 2x, and we already have had a 38% increase every year in our sales. So, and our average sale in our delivery operation is 175 or up, which is phenomenal. And so it was really an amazing year for us as far as expansion. And we don't feel that we're going to lose those customers when things go back to normal. Not that they're ever going to go back to normal, but so it definitely was. We had a growth that was completely off the charts, compared to what Headset is saying. Although in our retail store in Washington, it was similar to that, that's just data points.
Just going to ask what you
it's
saw.
all aggregated.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michael.
No problem. Tara, how did you see it impact your consumers directly, the pandemic specifically?
Well, cannabis is great for anxiety. And I think, people, the whole change in how people shopped, how they worked, how they related to each other was completely thrown, or, completely out the window. So I think there were several reasons for the uptick. One, nobody wanted to leave their house, nobody wanted to shop, nobody wanted to encounter other human beings. So that was a big deal. Going online, picking out what you want, paying for it, and having it delivered and left on your doorstep, that was easy. I also think the fact that people are more anxious and having trouble sleeping, worrying about money. Cannabis really relieves anxiety. And so I think that was a big, big push in sales. So those two things, and also, we particularly in California market to areas that it's harder to get cannabis. We have a very big presence in the San Francisco and outlying areas, and also in Los Angeles. But there's a lot of little cities that don't have easy access, so that was helpful. So those two things I think were big.
One thing, there's been such a hyper focus on COVID. that I think it's easy to lose sight of some of the other things. And in the world of mental health, the suicide rate last year actually doubled, and it's continued to go up. It is so cool to hear you say, hey, my consumers were impacted firsthand, by way of anxiety, stress, or what have you, and they were utilizing cannabis, as a medicine effectively or therapeutically. So it's really cool to see that, especially, there's real needs out there. The suicide rate skyrocketed in the world.
We have a lot of contact with our patients, and big customer service is one of our kind of hallmarks of our company. And so we do surveys all the time to find out, and we did a lot of surveys in-house. We have a big data point system in our website. So and anxiety was the big thing that people were responding about, and sleep issues, those two things.
I believe anxiety has become the #1 mental health concern in this country from raw numbers. I think they're saying more people suffer from anxiety than any other mental health. Wrong in that, but I think I did hear that. Dre, I'm curious from your perspective, from an MSO lens, how did you see consumer shifts and impacts with the pandemic?
Yeah, our journey was very dramatic. Just to recap, in early 2020, so like March, we had no online presence, and we only had a bunch of stores. We were, and I remember we were talking to Headset then, and I was intrigued by the data of Headset then already being connected to all the dispensaries and getting intelligence for our acquisitions and all that. But we really needed at that point, we needed to come up with a way we actually own our customer. We know our customer. We learn about it when we actually see what we're doing. So when we launched our online presence in April.
Dre, we got a little bit of internet lag, I believe. If you could just repeat that. Sorry about that.
Is it better now?
Better now, yep.
Okay, sorry. So when we launched our e-commerce platform, it says it's unstable. Is it still okay? Or?
No, you're coming through perfectly right now.
Okay, perfect. We launched this in April, and I have to say, so we focused really having a good experience with the site and having as less clicks. We looked at all the analytics before what our existing site had, and we saw people really want to find where the specific flower is, and they couldn't reserve it, but then they called into dispensaries. We only had like 5-6 dispensaries then in Pennsylvania. So that was very analog. And so when we launched April, I think we were kind of powered by COVID. So all angles of it just went right. So people didn't want to go out so much. They looked around. We offered them now a platform where they could reserve. So as you know, in cannabis, you cannot just buy it online and pay for it. It's basically pre-reserve your order, and then you have to pick it up. So this kicked off, I remember day one, and I've never seen this. And we've done a lot of e-commerce sites, including like fashion sites for Jessica Simpson. And so my team built a lot of e-commerce sites, and I've never seen day one selling like $50,000 of product. The last hit day was like this Saturday was our biggest day ever, nearly 600,000 a day. And that is all online. So now the journey was kind of with the site, with giving the people the opportunity to pre-order. And in Pennsylvania, getting permission to do curbside. So there was like lots of things was sped up. Like okay, now you can do curbside now. That wouldn't even be a discussion before, there's no way we've done it. So all these things got sped up and yes, do it, less touch point the better, express pickup. So the same time we're growing, we're getting a lot of data, and then we're ending up seeing that 75% of our customers just deciding even before they go to the store what they're going to get. Then we have like on more everything, and 85% of everything is mobile. So it was an incredible journey. Now we're getting all the data, and now we're getting to learn who our customers are, and we were able to launch as well finally like our loyalty programs, and the loyalty programs again have an impact on how good is your online setup. So this all works together, right? So it's like we're one of the, I think, best in class converting loyalty programs now. So COVID has done only good for us, as well from the legislation has opened and has made things easier for us, and plus being able to order from your home and then just go there and have as less touch points as possible. You don't want to browse around in COVID in the store, etc., etc. So that helped a lot. And now we're collecting data, and now with partners, we have we're big fans of Headset, and we're working with them together every day on our data, consolidating all our data, where we can learn now as like a real business from the real world. What people want, where we go, what brands we're gonna release, what people and anxiety, pain, and PTSD, like is a high. Is the biggest reason. So we do a lot of research. We have our own research department. So to answer the question, COVID really has, I think, propelled us all a little bit in the future way, all around. That's what I can say. And obviously, our medical markets are a little bit more challenging. You need medical cards, and you need like a meeting with the pharmacist and so on. So all this, we were able to online it. We have online consultations with pharmacists, with the doctors. You can get your medical card now online. So all this has been permitted as well by the Department of Health and so on. So it has been all around like a very, very good in the bad, right? Movement, I think. So.
Well, Dre, thanks for sharing your experience. I know in my home state, we saw regulations move a lot faster as well.
Exactly.
And we normally never see that. Our state's kind of known for things being slower, but we saw the state's first drive-through dispensary get approved. And I don't know that it would have if the pandemic wasn't happening. So that's an excellent point. Before I move on.
May I say one more thing? One more thing just came to my mind. Not looking only at the customer. So we as well. So we've been using COVID. I mean, everybody was very positive. Everybody is very focused. Everybody is working from one place, and you can get so many meetings done you could have never done before, right? You jump from one thing to the other, and it seems to be it has really speed up everything as well. Like our M&As, we were able to purchase like big grows in Pennsylvania. We got vertically integrated. We opened new stores. I mean, all that in COVID. And I think it was really only possible because everybody was able to focus so much and stay on one spot, don't travel around so much, and just focus on what you do. That is a big thing. I think that's in every business, but probably like a surprise, right?
Well, Dre, before I move on, we heard 95% of everything you said, but every once in a while there was a little bit of internet kind of static there. So if there's anything you're able to do to improve your connection, just to give you a heads up. So I'll keep going. Next question is kind of with the online experience becoming so important, how have your companies really prioritized that in cannabis? I mean, even just overall retail. I mean, the Amazons of the world have just taken over, right? Consumers have shown the ease of ordering online is absolutely paramount and key to them. How have your companies kind of prioritized this during this shift?
Well, I know we are certainly our website develop. We've had more focus on our website and the development of it, but what's really grown is customer service, because there's always issues when you're not right there face to face. You know, there's people have questions that you have to be able to answer them quickly and respond. So that's definitely been a big growth area for us. But our data harvesting that we do with our customers so that we can understand them, understand their desires, and respond to them quicker has certainly grown with this whole expansion that our company has had. Like I said, it's been 2x in the last year, which was astounding because we were already growing pretty fast. So
very cool, very cool. Let's talk about the importance of having just data, right? In this new landscape. Sai, what do you think are the most important metrics to have?
I think it's it's definitely an interesting time. What Tara and Dre are saying about this kind of transition to online ordering versus the brick and mortar kind of walking in shopping. And what's so fascinating about the cannabis industry is every every market kind of has different experiences, and even within markets, there's different experiences. And cannabis can go from like high volume stores where it's kind of like, trying to get people in and out, to very consultative experiences where even in adult use, I've seen, lobby situation where you're waiting to have kind of a one-on-one conversation with a bud tender. And I think that, they all have, different roles to play, but I think the reason for that is, cannabis is new. It's a new category for a lot of people. I think there's a lot of unknowns, and even for the most experienced cannabis consumer, when you walk into a store or you visit a store's online, website, you're going to be introduced to new products. Certainly, you're going to be introduced to new brands, and you may have questions about, what those products and brands are. So it's going to be quite a shift for retailers in general. And it sounds like, Tara and Dre are way ahead of the curve, with getting in front of that and making sure that there is a great experience for the shoppers, especially some of those numbers that I'm hearing, 70% of sales going through their online channels, for click and collect or pickup, and, 80+% of that coming from mobile. So really that UX is critical. So from a metrics perspective, I think there's a lot of best practices that are out there for like online e-commerce stores, but the challenge will be, adapting that to cannabis, which is a very unknown category. When you think about other experiences and shopping online and the Amazon experience, often, you're shopping for products and maybe you're researching products, but there's a lot of information on those products. And I think when you are finding a product on a website from a brand that maybe is new in cannabis, producing a new edible, often consumers, when they're in retailers, will ask the bud tenders, kind of like, what is this about? Do you know anything about this? And that's a harder thing to translate online, right? To have that kind of information, at the customer's fingertips. So taking some of those best practices from like online e-commerce, and combining that with like our unique world in cannabis for, new consumers and for existing experienced consumers that just want to know about the brands are critical. I think in the COVID world, focusing on, the basket, as I mentioned earlier, baskets are larger, and like how are you driving more upsell behavior, for your customers that come to the website and maybe are coming for, some certain product. Maybe they're looking for that flower that Dre mentioned, but how can you upsell them on some pre-roll products or edible products or whatever might fit to their need, to what Tara's saying about the customers and really knowing what fits their model. So looking at metrics that can help drive that is critical. And then finally, customer retention. Making sure that you maintain those customers. I think if they're not coming to the store, well, delivery, they're coming to you, and then click and collect, you're going to the store, nothing is getting shipped by, UPS like you might have with something like Amazon, but still customer retention and that loyalty data and making sure you're getting in front of them, encouraging them to come back more often. The frequency of purchasing has come down a little bit, but, baskets up, and getting those consumers, to purchase more often by targeting them, metrics around that, I think are really critical. It's just this big shift to online. Dre's absolutely right. I think, what everyone's saying is it's accelerated the industry 5 years ahead. I think, click and collect, delivery, loosening restrictions around that wouldn't have happened. It would have taken a lot of lobbying, a lot of time, but it had to happen quickly, to get consumers access that they needed. So it's just keeping up with that. And, we're in a space that's already moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, and now you layer this in, but it's good. It's just accelerating us and getting us to this place where this industry, it will be a model for everybody else. I think the transition to online shopping is impacting a lot of retail, but I think cannabis is just used to moving quickly and adapting quickly and kind of molding behaviors, for new consumers. And I think we've got a lot of advantages over other retail channels.
Ty, this is a follow-on question for you, but I think it can also be applicable for Tara and Dre. But what are the challenges for cannabis companies in harnessing data and utilizing it to create a better consumer experiences?
I mean, using data is always challenging, right? I think, people are overwhelmed by the amount of data that we get access to, and really understanding, how to translate that data into actions that actually drive, ROI for your businesses is always the big question, and different ways to solve it. Services like ours at Headset, we try and make it as easy as possible, but everyone has different needs and everyone has different kind of expectations and are trying to answer different questions. So some organizations have analysts on staff that are able to drill into it. Others, rely on kind of more of a self-service system to be able to understand what to do with it. But that's the key challenge. I would say, there's probably the best way to think about it is to kind of start with the outcomes that you're looking for. Like, what are you trying to drive? Are you trying to drive more new customers? Are you trying to drive those larger baskets, for your existing customers or whatever that may be? And then, once you know those outcomes that you're looking for, kind of start to identify the actions that can drive those outcomes. And then to kind of close the loop on that, really to measure the performance of those actions and to see, did it actually work? And if it didn't, try and adapt and see if there's other ways to drive some of those same outcomes, kind of A/B test along the way. So, I mean, that's kind of just broad way to look at it, but I think it starts with being mindful of analytics and really looking at the data.
Drilling into those, as they say, KPIs and KPDs, I think, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's interesting because we started out without using a lot of data analytics, but we built them into our website so that we can really, stay very close to it. But one of the things that we've also found is that the human aspect of sales and relationships with our customers is far greater. So it's really that combo nation type thing of using data and understanding, but also really looking at the feedback. When you have direct relationships via, email or them calling us or whatever, we really keep close tabs on that. And we do a lot of, customer, preferences and so on and so forth, so that we're prepared for things like that. But I think it's the human touch too. And now that we are in such a virtual world, when shopping is so virtual, I mean, I know everybody who's bought on Amazon, you get something that you're not happy with or you have a question about, and it's very hard to get somebody at Amazon and get a response and get things fixed. And so having, direct contact with a customer, I think is always really, really important. At least it has been for us. And one of the things that we do also is that when we find that there's a product that people really like, then we can promote it because of the things that they like about it. So, in speaking to your the idea that there's so many new products, and even with flower, there's new strains and things like that. I think people do searches for certain strains, and we can give them a lot of feedback on what our experience is, because we do a lot of testing of products, especially if it's a new product within our own company, so that we can give feedback.
Thanks for sharing.
So from my angle, can you hear me now better?
Yeah.
I try to shut down everything which can be shut down. So basically, for us, data at Jushi is the most important piece. And looking at the industry, it's all scattered. I mean, it's like all silos, right? And we are using all the tools which the normal businesses use, like from Instagram to Zendesk. Is it still okay? Or
yeah, perfect.
Sorry, then we're good now. Sorry, I'm a little paranoid now about the transmission. So all those silos I'm talking about, all the data silos, which thankfully everybody has an API these days. And if you look at that, and if you have somebody like Headset, for example, who can bring this all together in one data warehouse, and then we can actually custom build for our industry, like dashboards, which gives us visibility on all levels, what we want to see, and not what people want us to see. That's for us key, first of all. I think without that we wouldn't be here. I think we wouldn't even be talking about now. This is really a big focus of us, since we're in an industry where you cannot even advertise. I'm come from an industry you can like do whatever, like you spend lots of money, so you can do whatever. Here you can not do much. You have to kind of hack success at all times. I call it hack success. So
isn't it like hitting a brick wall after brick wall, and you just got to figure it out? That's part of what makes this industry so exciting, though, I have to say.
Exactly. But if you now come to a place, and we're very close to have total visibility, and I think one of our key things, I just want to give that as an example. I mentioned it before. The loyalty program in cannabis is really it's a big deal. You get the text, you get the emails, and you actually get, if you do it right, then people will actually fill out their interests and what they're looking for, and you can look at their patterns, their behaviors and all that, like you do in a normal business. And then you can personalize the messaging to them. You can send them only what they want to see. You know what they have liked before. You invite them or give them a reward. So this is for us an absolute key to focus on this. We have a whole department like on focusing on loyalty program. You know, we're not like, okay, we sign up to a loyalty program, let's just let it run, like many do. Like there's tools out there. Our partner is Springbig, for example, which Sai knows very well. It's important to use those tools and dive into them and really not only use them and use everything the platform gives, but as well work together with the partners and trying to improve and trying to have them implement certain things we learn on the sales floor, right? Like which we need to have implemented and develop with them together. So we have this like headset, Jane and Springbig is our partners there, and we try to go very deep. We just using it as a service, and then we never talk to each other. So like we're very close relationships, partners. Very important to collaborate. They're specific in an industry like that, I think. And so data for us is everything. I always get asked, you know, like every day I get a call and they want to put up some bill. We have to put up a billboard in Illinois. And I say, yeah, great. Yeah, it's like, for me, it's like nearly like a vanity project, right? Like, I'm here, but we could never measure how many people are coming from this. They did cards in the stores and asked people how many people come. But online, we have, and I can tell you the Saturday number, just it's a real number. So we get 1,200 new customers per day sometimes. So average 700 per day new customers, which is just.
Great. Isn't that proof to don't stop at the obstacles just because they say you can't market or advertise? You just can't stop. What you just proved is that tenacity pays big dividends in this industry.
Oh, totally. It's little things like you do in e-commerce, right? You have to look what happens. You have to look at your Google Analytics. Where do people go? Where do they not go? What's the URLs? Change the URLs. They're looking for dispensary. They don't look for dispensary. They look for cannabis dispensary. You know? So all these little things you have to tweak. So our teams are every day, like our website is of course 24 hours manned and like changed all day long every day and looking at analytics. So that's how we do such a big like percentage of online. I was on a tour last week in Nevada, and we spoke to dispensaries and it's using the same tools like us. They have Jane and stuff. So they say it's 10%, 15%, not even mentionable online. Doesn't work, you know. But it doesn't. If you look at their websites, it's like to get to Jane alone it's already problematic. You have to put your email address in before you can go to the menu, all these little things. It's just, then the baby cries and boom, I'm gone. So it's so important to have your UX and your CX right and look at the data, learn from the data and every day work with it, every day, every hour, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Quick question for Dre and Tara. Did you guys actually have stores get mandated to get shut down in your states? Because I was told Massachusetts was the only one, but maybe it was one of the only ones. But adult use retail in this state was shut down for about 2 months. And that was a really tough thing for this market and this industry because everybody was just getting open. And so for them to get shut down, it was painful in this state.
I think one of the things that was really great is that both in California specifically, but also in Washington, the government that deals with the shutdowns recognize that cannabis is something that people need because of anxiety and because of mental health issues and sleep issues. And so they decided that it was an essential service. And I think that was a really remarkably smart idea because definitely it is. And so we were not affected by it at all. There were no shutdowns.
Same for us. Pennsylvania is a purely medical market, as you know, and we were immediately essential business. The only thing shut us down is some of the riots. We had a bunch of COVID cases where you have to shut down and you have to overnight, you have to disinfect and change the team. So we always run on double teams. You know, there's a set of 10 people and a set of 10 people, and if going to be switched over. So it's all worked out. We worked it out for COVID already, so we don't have to close down long. But we as well in California, the same thing. It's always essential businesses, and we had a very, very good run there. So nothing.
I believe Massachusetts was the only state in the country that did not deem adult use cannabis an essential service. They kept medical open, but I got to tell you, it was a scary 2 months for the adult use businesses and the cultivations attached to them. That was a curveball that for a lot of the businesses that I knew of in this state, it was super scary. So here's
Nevada as well. Nevada had
really?
like 2 weeks or something. I heard some of the dispensaries in Nevada, I think.
Did you say 2 weeks?
I think 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
I had this huge tour, so we talked to everybody. Yeah, that's in Las Vegas specifically, I think.
We had a solid 2 months here, and the governor got a lot of pushback, based on what was going on. So here's a question. A lot of people believe that COVID has really accelerated federal legalization. And I also want to say, people in this industry, if you kind of fall in two camps, there are some people that are looking forward to federal legalization. And then there's a lot of people that are saying, you know what, I'm okay with it taking 3 to 5 years because it's giving me more time to build what I'm building, right? So I hear both sides of the story, but there's a lot of people that believe that federal legalization was 3 to 5 years off, but COVID just accelerated that to this year, to call it 3 years out. I'm curious, amongst all of you on the call, you guys are all movers and shakers in the industry. I'm really curious what you guys think.
I think it's been extremely beneficial. If there's one thing good that's come out of COVID, it is that it has accelerated it. People see that it's something that is not just, there's been such a bad rap that cannabis has had for so many years, and it has really helped society in this time. But also, I think our administration change was really very crucial to that. And the fact is that more than 65-70% of people accept cannabis as, adult use cannabis as not a bad thing. I can't think of any negative things on it. And also, I think the federal government is just really chomping at the bit to get some of those federal taxes, that the cannabis can provide them. So I look at it, and me and my partners all feel that it's a good thing, and the sooner the better. It's also because we have such difficulty with banking in our industry. We've always had problems with it, and this will help us grow as an industry. One of the things that I've always felt is that cannabis has to be normalized, and we've come a long way in this past year in normalizing cannabis across the spectrum of people. So that's a good thing.
That is a great point. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think from our perspective.
Oops. Yeah.
You broke up there. Try that one more time.
So basically, from our perspective, is it okay now?
Yep, we got you.
This is weird today. This is exactly the meeting which has to be no bandwidth. Perfect. Never happens, of course, right? So yeah, from our perspective, we've been building our portfolio of stores in very medical market. Virginia, for example, we are in some areas of Virginia, in our health area, we're like the only ones and the first ones. So there you want to build out more stores, and of course, federal legalization might help immensely to level this all out and take all this banking issues away and all that. But I feel as well that everybody we're talking to in those states where we're having conversation with senators and all the politicians and the people are very interested and engaged in that topic. I think they're very positive. And they're learning fast. They wanna learn. They go to our grow. They have a tour, and they understand then that it's actually a real thing. And then what you said, Tamara, as well, like the conditions and the anxiety and the pain management, you can heal with this product. I mean, people starting to understand. The more you educate it, they're more open for it. I have the feeling it's really as well accelerated that whole thing a little bit, the thinking, for sure.
Absolutely. And I fall in the camp of, I'm excited about banking being fully in place. I just think it's going to make it so much easier for businesses and investors.
Yeah.
But on the federal implementation front, I'm okay if it takes a little while for them to implement that, because right now, all of us early stage entrepreneurs that are on this, and investors, by the way, we're sort of benefiting from less competition. And then the last thing, I say this to investors all the time, well, what about the federal, legal risk? The one entity worldwide that is legally benefiting and profiting the most from this cannabis industry is our federal government. They're charging 40% taxes on this industry. I don't see them turning those tax dollars away. And what just happened with the Senate, I mean, let's face it, right? The Senate is now, Democrat majority. That's going to make a huge impact when you got the House, the Senate, and the White House. I think we're going to see a lot of changes this year, without a doubt.
You're just talking about taxes, and they're turning away 40%, but they're also driving a lot of really good operators out of business. It's impossible to sustain a business with the kind of taxation that 280 has caused in the cannabis industry. It's impossible. And so, they have to change it, or they kill the goose. It's the golden goose. They can tax it and make money on the sales, but if they continue the way that we're, the trajectory that we're on, everybody goes out of business eventually.
I agree. And I believe as federal legalization gets closer, our federal government quickly figures out, if we let this industry open up, even if we dial back the tax rate, we're going to make a hell of a lot more money. And I think that this is going to be a huge year for change in this industry. So, but everybody listen, it was a really cool conversation with all of you. I hope our audience certainly enjoyed and benefited from the dialogue, but we have reached our time. I see my notifications. We are getting our hook. So thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time and sharing. Much appreciated.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.